Hey guys, welcome back. Just wanted to get started with a quick video before the week. I know I posted the charts. I briefly wanted to kind of go over my thoughts since there were a lot of questions. What this chart is trying to imply is that, yeah, this entire move down was our wave A, and I could see a little more weakness early this week, right? But I'm expecting whatever dip it has, right? That's what you can see. I've pretty much mimicked the bar pattern for when this is a wave B bounce previously, and this is a wave C sell. I've just mimicked that same bar pattern, and this is what I got for the chart, and it kind of aligns, right? We come test the bottom trend line. So any dip, right? Any further dip, I expect it into the year end again. I'm looking 2-3 months, right? Out, not like next week and stuff like that. So any weakness, I expect that this weakness will get bought up, right? And we have a bounce into 4,400-ish. And 2023, we're going to have a pretty bearish market. So that's kind of my primary assumption. Again, the wave 4 could end in 2023, or what could end up happening again is, right, you have another bounce and we possibly test, the low 2000s before this wave 4 ends. So those are kind of the two long-term scenarios I'm looking at, right? When we get here, then we can kind of see what the macro situation is before we, kind of declare a bottom. But for now, it's kind of what I'm looking at, right? So I'm not really looking into any more bearish setups, right? We enjoyed this move down. Now, again, I'm looking to see in the next couple of weeks, right, to see if this dip gets bought into the year end. So that's kind of my basic thinking for the broader market, right? And let's go to the chart of wicks, right? And I wanted to show you that every major sell-off, right, has rallied into this trend line, and we again have surprisingly stuck right at this trend line. So that's kind of where my expectation for the year-end rally also comes, is possibly have a small pop before we come down to test the bottom trend line. So this is what I have for wicks. So it kind of aligns with my thesis for the market, right? And if we look at the dollar has been, surprisingly strong, right? If I go to the monthly chart, it shouldn't be a shock that it's strong because, this is the monthly breakout that it had, right? We consolidated a little bit and then we broke out of that breakout. So I wouldn't be shocked if the dollar continued higher, but I know the next major resistance is at 119. It is at a small level of resistance right here. But yeah, I would be careful, trying to short the dollar or whatever. But yeah, the dollar could, kind of slow down at these levels, right? If you look at the yields, we know it's again on a monthly resistance level, right? And again, just like the dollar, it does have a little more room to the upside, right? Top of this trend line is around 4%. But yeah, it's again about to slow down, right? So yeah, this could lend, support for the bounce that we're looking for. So this is bigger picture thinking, right, that I wanted to show you. I'm just, again, I'm not saying this is the exact bottom, right? I could see a little more weakness, but again, that's again historically this week. October tends to be the most bottoms for the market. I saw some stat like that. So that could make sense, a little more weakness into the week. But again, I wouldn't be shocked if we just, start bouncing off this channel, because this channel has accurately held a support and resistance. I wouldn't be shocked at that either. So yeah, with that being said, let's look at this week's watch list, right? It's pretty short because the broader thesis is the same. You could kind of play the same chart for most stocks, right? So yeah, I just picked a couple. So Microsoft, we know that this trend line, right, is support, right? Just because it tagged the trend line. If I move it a little bit, you can see about 1228, right, is where the actual support is. So I wouldn't be shocked, right? Like I said, if we have a little more weakness this week, I wouldn't be shocked if we tap 228, but it's kind of where I think Microsoft is going to bottom for this A wave before you have the B wave. So that's why I kind of have Microsoft on this week's watch list. It would make a good stock to kind of look into, right? And similarly, whatever I said for Microsoft could also be applied for like Google, right? You can see it's about to fill this gap. So a little more weakness would likely mark the bottom, right, for Google before it has this B wave bounce. And even for Meta, right? We go to the chart of Meta, we can see that a little more weakness will pull this back to the trend line, and that could ideally mark the bottom. So yeah, again, I wouldn't be shocked if we just reverse from here, right? But a trend line touch would be more ideal. So yeah, that's what I have for Microsoft. The next one I have is Zoom. The reason I picked Zoom is because on the daily chart, you can see this is a trend line I drew from, its IPO, and it's kind of sitting on here. So I think any dip at these levels will likely, get bought out on Zoom, and we're likely gonna, have a bounce. So that's the reason I have Zoom. And the next one I have is BABA. Before I do BABA, let's look at HSI, right? And initially I did have it's almost at the trend line that I mentioned, right? And we've been looking at, but now I'm starting to think that, the trend line could break and we come down, right? Do you see this? This is the 618 and the 1.618 fibs. So I'm thinking a little more weakness. Obviously, we're gonna bounce off the trend line, right? But I'm thinking what's gonna happen on China stocks is a small bounce before a move to the trend line, before a larger bounce. It's kind of what I'm leaning at, right? So again, BABA, we know it broke this chart pattern, so I think this bounce will get rejected and it's gonna go lower, and BABA would be a good stock to play puts on. And the last one is Carvana. Again, this just follows the theme of oversold growth, right? Potentially getting bid, right? Once it gets supported around these regions. So that's why I have Carvana calls. All right, that's all I have for this week's watch list, right? I hope you have a great day.